Hello, this is Walt Ford, retired Marine Colonel, editor of Leatherneck Magazine, and publisher for the Marine Corps Association. I'm here today with Scott Laidig. He's the author of Volume 1, Al Gray, Marine, the Early Years, 1950 to 1967. Volume 1, that means there's going to be more. Isn't that right, Scott?
Well, we certainly hope so. We certainly hope so.
Now, you're a Marine.
I am a Marine.
Tell us a little bit about when you served and what you did MOS-wise.
I was a 1965 graduate of Ohio State's NROTC program and came in, went to basic school and was assigned an 03 MOS and went straight to Vietnam in early '66 and had the good fortune of being in PX Kelly's battalion, the Magnificent Bastards of 2-4. Then later in my career they sent me to Russian language school, and so I learned a little Russian, and that got me into the SIGINT business out in Japan. I did some time on submarines and flew with the VQ squadrons out there. And then I went back into the infantry in '72, '73 in Okinawa, and my last tour on active duty was as an instructor at the basic school, where I replaced a more well-known figure, Ollie North, as the head of the patrolling section. So that was my career in this.
Yeah, that's good. That's great. And I know historically and duty station-wise, Al Gray was there in Japan too at one point.
We were at the same place. General Gray was at Kamisea, Japan in 1955, and I arrived at Kamisea, Japan the same day that Neil Armstrong landed on the moon.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, we're glad that this book is being written by a Marine, about a Marine, a tremendous Marine. Why did you pick Al Gray? Why did you pick this book, this story to tell? Well,
I became a friend of General Gray after he retired. He joined the board of directors of our small company, and I got to know him through that. And I retired from business around '97. And I was still involved with General Gray and coming to see General Gray and stuff, and he accused me of wasting my life being my wife's chauffeur. And so hearing the stories and having the privilege of being in his home all those years, I kind of knew that he spent a lot of time in Vietnam, and Vietnam's a topic near and dear to my heart. And so I envisioned a book called Al Gray in Vietnam. And I presented him with a one-page proposal that I would write a book called Al Gray in Vietnam. I'm fairly sure that the only reason he accepted my offer was because I said that nobody would benefit financially from the book except the Semper Fi Fund, which is, of course, near and dear to General Gray's heart. And so I think once we made that connection, he was certainly more agreeable. You know, General Gray is a very private person.
Yes.
He does not talk about himself.
Yes.
He does not like writing about himself or having me write about himself. So it was a real coup, and you know, the fact that we had the access that we did was just happenstance and good luck. I keep telling the general that he deserves a much better biographer than me, but he seems to be content with me, so we'll just continue.
Soldier on. I read the book. It's a great book. There's a lot of details in there. For some of us who thought we knew a little bit about General Al Gray, there's a lot of surprises. So I appreciate the detail that you did put in this, and I think all of our readers will enjoy the book. I'm sure you went into this research and writing effort and spent quite a bit of time on it. How long did you devote to just doing Volume 1?
Well, we had several starts and stops to Volume 1, as you know, we're all getting a little bit older, and so we had some health issues intervene and that kind of stuff. But basically, Volume 1 was a 5-year effort, and I will candidly say that I think a lot of that was Scott gaining General Gray's confidence. The book was never going to be General Gray tells Scott and Scott tells the story. That isn't the way it evolved. The way we got into it was I had to go out and dig up stories that others told about General Gray, and then the general, who still has, you know, he's still the sharpest person I know, and has a great memory and a great grasp of historical details, then he would embellish on the story or correct the story and that sort of thing. So for a long time it was a matter of me finding the proper voice to tell the story, and then the general becoming comfortable telling us the story. We have General Gray on videotape. We have probably 40 hours of videotape now of General Gray, and he did an oral history for NSA. So that after we got started with the book, then that also took some time, because I thought it was more important to get the videotape, get General Gray on videotape, than it was for me to keep going on the book. So. Yeah.
One of the surprises for me was his involvement with National Security Agency, NSA. Now, isn't he a member of some or honorary something, received some honors from them?
General Gray is on the NSA Wall of Honor, and he's the only, as far as I know, he's the only tactical cryptologist who has been so honored. But yes, he is a, General Gray's involvement at NSA, you'll have to wait for another volume or two before we tell the story, but the day that Secretary Weinberger and Secretary Webb kind of interviewed General Gray to be the commandant, they actually found him out at NSA, which I think is just a coincidence, but it's one of many coincidences that we try and document in the book.
Right. When you did your research, were there any kind of preconceived notions from your time as a Marine lieutenant, and that you were surprised, you yourself were surprised that the research developed?
I think that most people would be stunned to realize what a scholar General Gray is. He is the most well-read person I have ever met, and more importantly, he remembers what he reads. And so I think that, we've all, as Marines, been associated with great leaders. We've all been associated with officers who take good care of the troops. We've all been associated with those kinds of people. I have never, and in my experience ever, met a man who was more fully committed to learning his profession and all aspects of his profession as General Gray. I think we could arguably say, as a field grade officer, his seniors thought him to be the best artillery officer that they'd ever met. His seniors certainly considered him the best cryptologist they ever met. His seniors probably considered him the best intel officer they ever met. And I think that by the end of Volume 2, which is the evacuation of Saigon, his seniors thought he was the best infantry officer they ever met. Well, that's, I mean, how do you get much better than that?
Yeah, and be the commandant. So we now know there's Volume 2. How many more volumes do you predict?
In knowing what I know about his career as a general officer, I don't think that we could cover his general officer years in 300 pages. I think the commandant years will be a volume, and I think his years as a brigadier to a lieutenant general will be a volume. So I right now hope that that I don't wear out my welcome before we get through 4 volumes with the general.
Sounds great. And the real beneficiary of all this are the American public and Marines, because they'll read about a great leader, but also the Injured Marines Semper Fi Fund. In the last 10 years, that organization has done so much for the Corps, our Marines, and our Marine families. So it's good that the profits from this book are going that direction.
It's humbling to be just a minor part of the Semper Fi Fund. I can think of no better legacy for the general than that we all work to help the Semper Fi Fund.
Well, thank you very much for being with us today, Scott. And if you haven't ordered your book yet, get in touch with Marine Corps Association. We're going to have some signed copies left over. And right now we'll go downstairs to the Marine shop and let you sign a few books. Thank you very much, Scott.
Thank you, Walt.